I had been stationed overseas for nearly a year, counting down the days until I could come home to my wife. Every time I called, her voice was distant, but I convinced myself it was just the time difference, the stress of waiting, the difficulty of keeping a marriage together through distance. I swallowed my doubts. I told myself love was stronger than this. Then, on a humid night when I finally had some time to breathe, I checked my email. The subject line was blank. No greeting, no hesitation, just a block of text that hit me like a freight train. I deserve a successful man. I can't waste my best years waiting for you to come home from whatever pointless mission you're on. You'll never be enough for me. By the time you read this, I'll be in another man's bed. Don't worry about me. I've moved on. You should too. For a long moment, I sat there, rereading the words, expecting them to change. Some part of me thought if I just stared hard enough, I'd wake up from this. My ears started ringing. My pulse thumped at my temples. I tried to breathe, but it was like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I had left everything behind for her. I had sent her money. I had planned for our future. And she had just thrown me away. Not only that, but she wanted me to know. She wanted me to picture her with another man. She wanted me to suffer. My hands hovered over the keyboard, my mind screaming at me to say something, to demand an explanation, to beg, to fight for her. But something inside me snapped. I closed the email. I turned off the computer. And I didn't sleep. Over the next few days, I learned through old friends back home that she had already moved out of our house. She had taken everything of value, our savings, my car, even my dog. And the man she had left me for? Some middle management guy who flashed his cash around like he was a king. A guy who had been circling her for months before she sent that email. That's when I realized she hadn't just left me. She had been planning this. I had been blind. But not anymore. I didn't respond to her email. I didn't call. I didn't beg. I disappeared. I buried myself in work. I took every mission, every overtime shift, anything to keep my mind occupied. But when I lay in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, the rage festered. It wasn't just betrayal, it was the way she had done it. Cold, calculated. She had dismantled our life piece by piece while I was thousands of miles away, unable to do a damn thing. Then, 3 months later, I got another email. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing well. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just a casual, meaningless hope you're doing well, like she hadn't ripped my life apart. I didn't reply. Then, a few weeks later, another message. I know things ended badly, but I'd still like to be friends. I think about you sometimes. I nearly laughed. Friends. She took my house, my money, my dog, and left me in a war zone. And now she wanted to be friends? I deleted the email. But I knew what this was. The honeymoon phase with her new guy was wearing off. She had traded loyalty for luxury. And now she was starting to realize money doesn't buy everything. And that's when I made a decision. I wouldn't waste another second mourning her. I would build something better. Something so untouchable, so undeniable, that she would regret every single decision she made. I stopped waiting for the pain to fade. I started becoming someone she could never touch again. I cut her out of my mind like a tumor. While she was busy living her new life, flaunting her new man and spending the money she stole from me, I was making moves. Every minute, every decision, every breath I took was focused on one thing. Building a life so untouchable that she would never even deserve to look in my direction again. I extended my deployment, took on higher-risk missions, saved every dollar I could. My free time? Spent in the gym, pushing myself to the brink. My downtime? Spent studying, networking, making connections with men who didn't just serve, they ruled when they came back. I wasn't just moving on. I was evolving. And it paid off. Fast forward 5 years. I walked into my high school reunion like a ghost back from the dead. People barely recognized me at first. The quiet, easygoing guy they remembered was long gone. In his place was a man who had seen the worst of the world and conquered it. And then there she was. She hadn't aged well. Not physically, she still had the polished, Instagram-perfect face, but there was something hollow in her eyes. Something hungry. Her dress was a little too tight, her laugh a little too forced. She saw me and froze. For a moment, there was silence. Then she smiled. That same fake, rehearsed smile I had seen 1,000 times. She swayed toward me, her fingers grazing my arm like we were old friends, like she hadn't ripped my world apart years ago. Adam? Oh my God. Look at you. I looked down at her hand on my arm, looked back up at her, didn't say a word. She giggled, tucking her hair behind her ear, shifting her weight like she was still the prize in the room. Wow, I mean, She gestured at me, wide-eyed, pretending to be impressed, pretending she hadn't been the one to say I'd never be enough. You look incredible. What have you been up to? I let the silence drag, let her squirm. Then I leaned in just slightly, my voice calm. Existing without you has been the best decision I ever made. Her smile twitched. For the first time in her life, she was speechless. And then the doors opened. 2 men in black suits walked in, scanning the room, making their way toward me. The murmur of conversation faded as people noticed. The quiet kid they remembered from high school wasn't just back, he had walked in with bodyguards. And when she realized exactly who I had become, that's when the fear hit her eyes. She blinked rapidly, her fake confidence cracking like cheap glass. Her hand, still resting lightly on my arm, twitched before she pulled it back, smoothing down the front of her dress like that could somehow fix the sinking feeling in her gut. Bodyguards? She laughed, but it was thin. Forced. Desperate. Oh, come on, Adam. Is this some kind of joke? I didn't answer. Didn't need to. The room was silent. Every pair of eyes flickered between me and the 2 towering men in black, their movements sharp, controlled. Not rent-a-cop security. Not friends playing a role. These were real professionals, the kind of men you only have when you have something worth protecting. And she knew it. Her tongue darted out to wet her lips. She hated this. Hated not being the center of attention in the way she wanted. Hated that she wasn't in control. Adam, she tried again, her voice soft now, a hint of something fragile threading through it. I didn't realize. I mean, you never really posted much online, and no one seemed to know where you went after. She stopped herself. Like she just now understood that she had thrown away a ghost. Someone who had vanished. Someone who had rebuilt himself in the dark while she was too busy parading around in the arms of a mediocre man with a leased car and a fragile ego. I heard you got married, I said casually, finally breaking my silence. She flinched. Just a little. Most people wouldn't have noticed. I did, she said, straightening her spine like she was proud of it. Like she didn't care. And divorced. Turns out he wasn't really the guy I thought he was. I hummed. Shame. She shifted closer, lowering her voice like we were sharing some kind of secret. Listen, Adam. I know things ended badly between us, but I never stopped thinking about you. And seeing you now. Her fingertips grazed my wrist, just barely testing. Maybe we could talk. Catch up. I mean, we have so much history, right? I watched her for a long moment. Watched the way her chest rose a little higher, how she angled her body just so, how she leaned in, giving me that look. The same look she used to give me when she wanted something. The same look she had probably given her ex-husband before draining him dry, too. Then I smiled. Slow. Unbothered. History? I repeated. We don't have history. We have a lesson. Her face dropped. I turned away without another word. Walked past her toward the men waiting for me. Sir, one of them said, holding out my coat. I took it. Slipped it on with practiced ease. On the moment. Behind me, she stood frozen in place, her hands clenched into fists, her perfect mask shattering in real time. And as I walked out of that room, leaving her exactly where she belonged, in the past, I didn't even bother looking back. The air outside was cool, crisp, and untouched by the weight of the past. As I stepped through the doors, my bodyguards flanking me, I exhaled slowly. Controlled. At peace. Inside, I knew she was still standing there, reeling, scrambling to make sense of the new reality she had just walked into. The reality where she wasn't the queen, where she wasn't the one calling the shots. The reality where I had one. Car's ready, sir, one of my men said. I nodded, sliding into the back seat of the black SUV parked just outside the venue. The door shut with a quiet thunk, sealing me inside a different world. A world she would never have access to again. But as the car pulled away, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I already knew who it was before I even checked the message. Adam, please, can we talk? I smirked. Pathetic. She had made her choice. She had ripped out my heart, spit on it, and walked away without a second thought. And now, after seeing what I had become, she wanted back in? I tapped my fingers against the phone, debating for a second. Then, slowly, deliberately, I typed my response. We are not the same anymore. You proved that years ago. Lose this number. I hit send. Not even a minute later, another message. I made a mistake. I chuckled under my breath. Too late. I didn't block her. No, that would have been too easy. I wanted her to sit there, staring at her screen, waiting for a response that would never come. She had wanted a successful man? Well, now she had to live with the fact that she had let one slip through her fingers. A week passed. Then, too, I thought that would be the end of it. That she'd get the hint and disappear back into whatever sad little life she had built for herself. But women like her don't just give up. One evening, after wrapping up a business meeting, I walked out of the building and saw her, standing by the curb, waiting for me. She looked different. The confidence, the arrogance, it was still there, but it wasn't real anymore. It was a performance, a mask slipping at the edges. She had done her homework. She knew where to find me. The moment our eyes met, she took a step forward as if we were long-lost lovers reuniting. Adam. She breathed a little too eagerly. I didn't react. Just stood there studying her. The expensive handbag clutched tightly in her manicured fingers. The designer coat that was just a little too worn at the seams. She wasn't doing as well as she wanted me to think. You're hard to get a hold of, she said, letting out a soft, nervous laugh. I slid my hands into my pockets. I ignored you. That's usually a hint. She flinched, just for a second, but recovered fast, her lips curving into something that was supposed to be charming. Come on, Adam. Do we really have to do this? I just wanted to see you. To talk. Talk? I tilted my head slightly. About what? How you threw me away like yesterday's trash. How you stole from me. How you sent me an email saying you were in another man's bed before I even had a chance to respond. Her eyes widened, her cheeks darkening. Good. Let her feel humiliated for once. I was stupid, she admitted, finally dropping the act. I was selfish. And I regret it every day. I waited. Let her squirm. I didn't think you'd ever become, she motioned toward me, toward everything I was now. Successful? I supplied. Wealthy? Powerful? She swallowed. Yes. I laughed. Cold. Sharp. And that's exactly why you don't belong in my life. Her breath caught. Adam, please, I took a step forward, towering over her, making sure she felt the weight of my presence. You made your choice, I said. Now you get to live with it. Then, without another glance, I turned and walked away. And this time, when she called my name, I didn't stop, she didn't let it go. I should have expected that. Women like her, they don't accept consequences. They don't believe in losing. A few days later, I was at a private dinner with business partners when my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't just a text. It was a voicemail. I had no intention of listening to it, but curiosity won out. I pressed play. At first, there was silence. Then, a shaky breath. Adam. I don't even know if you'll listen to this, but I need to see you. Please. It's important. Just meet me. One time. That's all I ask. I stared at my phone, debating. Every logical part of me said ignore it. Walk away. Let her drown in her regrets. But something in her voice, it was different. Not fake. Not manipulative. Something else. So I made a decision. One last meeting. On my terms. I had my assistant set the location, one of my buildings, a private office, no public eyes. If she wanted to talk, she would do it on my ground. When she arrived, I barely recognized her. The confident, polished woman from our high school days? Gone. Her makeup was perfect, her clothes expensive, but there was something off about her. A certain tension in the way she moved. A twitch in her fingers as she adjusted the sleeve of her coat. She was nervous. Good. I leaned back in my chair, watching her carefully. You wanted to talk. So talk. She hesitated. Then I made a mistake. I raised a brow. You already said that. Repeatedly. Get to the point. She bit her lip, clearly frustrated that her usual tricks weren't working. I know you hate me. And I don't blame you. But things haven't been easy for me. After the divorce, I lost a lot. He wasn't who I thought he was. He left me with nothing. I had to start over and it's been hard. I said nothing. She exhaled sharply. I don't want money, Adam. I swear. I just want to be in your life again. And there it was. The real reason she was here. She thought if she played the role of the broken, humbled woman, I'd take her back. That I'd forgive her. That I'd somehow forget the way she had spit on my loyalty and discarded me like I was beneath her. I leaned forward slightly, my voice calm. Controlled. Let me make this clear. I don't care what you lost. I don't care how hard it's been. You threw me away for someone you thought was better. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. You said you deserved a successful man. I let that hang in the air for a moment. Well, now you get to watch one walk away from you. She gasped, eyes wide. And this time, when I walked out of the room, she knew it was over. She didn't chase me. Not this time. She just sat there, frozen, the weight of reality finally crashing down on her. I stepped out of the office, nodded to my security, and didn't look back. I was done. Or so I thought. 2 weeks later, I got a call. From my lawyer. Adam, we have a situation. That got my attention. I wasn't the kind of man who got unexpected calls from my lawyer. I made sure of it. Go on, I said. He sighed. It's your ex-wife. She's trying to claim financial support from you. I actually laughed. She has no legal ground to stand on, I said. She left me. She took my money. She remarried. She divorced. She's not my problem. I know, my lawyer agreed. But she's desperate. And desperate people do stupid things. I leaned back in my chair, my jaw tightening. What exactly is she trying to pull? She's claiming you promised to support her financially after the divorce. That you agreed to help her transition after her second marriage failed. She even has fabricated text messages. My grip on the phone tightened. She's lying. Of course she is, my lawyer said dryly. But she's banking on you settling just to make her go away. She really thought I was that stupid? That weak? I exhaled through my nose, my anger slow and controlled. I wasn't that young, naive soldier anymore. I was a man who had built something powerful, untouchable. And she was about to learn the hard way that I wasn't the kind of man you tried to scam. Handle it, I said. Make sure she regrets ever thinking my name could be a payday. Consider it done, my lawyer replied. The call ended. I set my phone down, staring at the city skyline through my office window. She wanted war? She just made the worst mistake of her life. It didn't take long for my lawyer to rip her case apart. I barely had to lift a finger. She had no evidence, no real claim, and her forged texts were so poorly done that it was almost insulting. My legal team crushed her attempts before they even had the chance to make it into a courtroom. And just like that, her last, pathetic attempt to stay in my life crumbled. But the real moment of satisfaction? That came when she realized she had messed with the wrong man. A few days after my lawyer shut everything down, I got another message from her. No long explanations. No fake apologies. Just 2 desperate words. I'm sorry. I ignored it. Then, not even an hour later, another message. Can we please talk? I don't want it to end like this. I chuckled. She still didn't get it. She thought there was still something to end. That there was still a thread of connection between us. There wasn't. And I made sure she understood that permanently. I called my lawyer back. She tried to use my name for money. Make sure no one ever gives her another chance to use it for anything else. And just like that, her name was on a blacklist across every major business circle I was a part of. No one important would hire her. No one powerful would take her seriously. She had burned her last bridge. And the best part? She had done it all to herself. I never heard from her again after that. Not directly, anyway. But word got around. People talk. Especially in the circles I move in now. Her life spiraled after that. No job offers. No connections. She bounced between low-tier gigs, never able to hold onto anything stable. The luxury lifestyle she had abandoned me for? Gone. The designer bags? Sold. The expensive car? Repossessed. The lavish apartment? Evicted. She had gambled everything on the idea that she would always be able to land on her feet. That she would always have some wealthy idiot willing to save her. But I wasn't an idiot. And no one else was stupid enough to fall for her tricks anymore. The last I heard, she had moved back in with her mother. The same woman she used to mock for never living up to her potential. The irony was delicious. And me? I thrived. Every decision I had made, every move I had played, it had all led me here. To a life so far above the one she had once abandoned me in, she could barely see it from the ground. But the real victory? It wasn't the money. It wasn't the power. It wasn't even the satisfaction of watching her fall apart under the weight of her own greed. It was the fact that I no longer cared. I was free, and she was nothing more than a forgotten lesson.